All right, my name is Johnny Primo. I'm 36 years old. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I run a company named Courses of Action. I was in the military for almost 16 and a half years, majority of that time in special operations. And I'm also a fully certified trainer at Jim Jones. But I think I need to go back into my life to tell you where I got to where I am today and how and why. Like most people that I know, I grew up in a broken home. We ended up in Arizona when I was 3 years old. My mom was a single mom, raising 2 boys, so she wasn't really home that often. We had to experience a lot of babysitters and things like that. At a very young age, I got introduced to violence. I was 5 years old. We had a babysitter, and essentially what he did is he had us do like a kids fight club. And I remember doing these fights and having to fight these other kids that were anywhere between the age of like 4 and 8 years old. And if I didn't, then he'd make my little brother fight. So I immediately took on the role of a protector, and I really was not gonna allow my little brother to be hurt. So at a young age, I understood what violence was and I understood what protecting somebody meant. Switched babysitters. The babysitter's daughter, when I was 7 years old, kind of did some inappropriate things to me sexually as a young man. I was 7, she was a girl. So not only by the age of 7, I had been exposed to that and violence. I understood what violence was, and I was getting fights in school. And then at that point, I guess you could say, molested, but not in the way that most boys are. Didn't really tell anybody about it, just kept it to myself. I just knew that I was extremely angry on the inside and a very violent kid. And violence towards my little brother, who I was also protecting, violence towards other kids. And I wasn't big, you know, I graduated at the weight of 123 pounds. At the age of 14, my mother passed away, and that was kind of weird for me. And I started partying really, really hard as a 14-year-old. At the age of 17, I woke up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning, and I was clinically dead for almost 5 minutes. It was around this point in my life that I realized, you know, I wasn't even 18 yet, but I was already finished high school. I had to do something. So I went into a recruiter and I said, hey, I want to join the military and I just want to get out of here. We took my ASVAB and I aced it. So on the ASVAB, they look at your GT score as what you need, what determines what your job is. My GT score was your general technical score. I think the max is 140. I had a 126 and the average for the military is like 80. I was allowed to do anything. I said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to jump out of planes and blow shit up. So I went into the Army as a 12 Bravo combat engineer. I went to OSUT at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Went into jump school at Fort Benning, showed up to the 82nd, and I was in E4 because I did junior ROTC in high school. Showed up to the 82nd, and I was like, wow, what is this? Like, this is not for me. We had to shine boots, iron uniforms, get these weird haircuts, all this stuff. Didn't really like it, but I noticed that there were these bearded guys running around Fort Bragg. Long hair, beards, all this. At that point, you know, Fort Bragg, North Carolina is where the Special Forces Q course is. That's where Delta Force is. That's where 3rd Special Force Group is. That's where 7th Special Force Group was at this point in time. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't train up for anything. I didn't do any train up. I just decided I want to go to Special Forces Assessment and Selection, or SFAS as they call it. At that point in time, selection was 31 days, and I showed up, E4, not knowing what's going on, and here we go. The first day, my group was cutting sheets of plywood, 3 feet by 6 feet, and there were about 500 people. And the other half, I didn't know what they were doing. We load up the plywood, we come back, and the other half, figure this much, is they're the ones that took all the mattresses off the beds. My group was cutting our new mattresses, and for 31 days, my mattress was a sheet of plywood. I kept on seeing people quit, and this is when I realized the mental toughness means more than anything, and that the mind is primary. At Jim Jones, there they say the mind is primary, and this is very true. I started seeing people quit. I wanted to quit, but then I see the losers that quit, and I say losers because you're losing at life if you quit on yourself. And I'd see them, and I'd thrive off that, and I'd gain energy from the people that quit. At the end of 31 days, you know, we started off with a little over, somewhere between 450 and 500 people. At the end of 31 days, there were 60 of us. After that, you start learning your job, what you're going to do on a team. I started off as a weapons sergeant, and then you go do small unit tactics for 60 days, and you learn your job. You go to Robin Sage, and then the hardest part for me in the Q course was language school. I had to learn Pashto, which was 7 hours a day, up to 6 days a week for 6 months. I got to my team. After language school, you go to SEER school, where they basically capture you, interrogate you, and learn a lot about yourself, and all you got at that. You definitely learn a lot in interrogations. You get waterboarded, you get beat up, all this stuff. put in a little box where you can't move. My team was there, and then 3 days later I deployed to Afghanistan with my team. I learned a lot about myself there. You know, I wanted to be in a firefight right out the gate, and everyone wants to be in a firefight until you're in a firefight. And July 23rd, 2005 is whenever we lost my teammate Jason Palmerton. It was my team versus a little over 200 dudes, and we fought our asses off for almost 14 and a half hours. They weren't able to send in QRF or a quick reaction force because it was too hot. What ended up saving my entire team is we had a bomber at a little over 18,000 feet, and we dropped 6 2,000-pound JDAMs within 150 to 600 meters away. Otherwise, my entire team would be dead. Once again, going back into protection, right? So as soon as I showed up to my team, I understood that, yeah, I love my country, and I love my flag, and I love my family, and I'm a Christian, and I believe in all these things, but I was not doing it for God or country or my family. I was not deploying, and I wasn't a Green Beret for that. At first I thought I was, but then I quickly realized that I was doing it for my teammates. I was doing it so that all of us got home in one piece. And whenever one of them didn't, that was bad. I can tell you right now that losing my first teammate was worse than losing my own mom. You're close with your team, you do anything for your team. I'm willing to sacrifice my life for anybody on my team. You know, people say the drop of a dime. Before that fucking dime hits the ground, I'm ready to do it for them. And they do the same for me. And this goes back into what I learned at a young age of 5 years old, of fighting for something that I believe in and fighting for someone that I care about so that something didn't happen to them. From the time I got there to the time that I got out, I deployed 13 times. 2 of those deployments were in a staff position that I should have done as a break. And instead, I ended up working with SEALs, MARSOC, you name the umbrella they fall under, Special Operations Command or SOCOM, and I was working with them. And I just burned out. And in 2014, got out of the military. I didn't know what I was gonna do, so I tried working for different companies and these corporations, and my style of leadership was not acceptable in the civilian world, right? I started courses of action in April of 2016. We've been around for 2 years now. With the sole purpose of what happened to me as a kid, what happened to me as a child, what happened to, to teammates not making it home, what happened to anyone. I don't want that to happen to them. And I tell people in the beginning of my classes, like, yeah, you can say that I've done all this cool stuff, but the only thing that should impress you about my resume is that I'm still alive. And there's a reason for that. And my goal now is to teach people how to be better human beings so that they don't have to lose their life, so that they don't have to be molested as a child, so they don't have to be sexually abused as an adult, so that they don't have to be put in situations, and if they are put in situations, they know how to protect themselves or their loved ones. So I started courses of action. Prior to that, moving to Salt Lake City, I started training out a gym here named Jim Jones. But what's unique is the whole mindset thing there. You're never gonna get somebody that quits on themselves. They will give it everything they have and fucking pass out before they quit on themselves. So I think a lot of issues that people have are transitioning from the military, finding that camaraderie that you had on a team. And with me, I kind of fell into it at Jim Jones. I'm a fully certified Jim Jones instructor. It's not like a CrossFit certification. So it's earned, everyone puts out, and that's kind of training that I incorporate into my courses with courses of action. Courses of action is, whenever you come up with a plan, if you just have one plan, you're always gonna fail. But if you have different courses of action, then something happens, you can deviate to this course of action and then come back to this one maybe, but deviate to these other sub-plans, if you will, to make your company succeed or your life succeed or have mission success in whatever you're doing. I believe that whenever we train, too many people go to the range and they just shoot bullseyes, right? They shoot these tight groups thinking they're gonna be awesome so they can take it home and hang it on the fridge and show their family how awesome they are. In reality, none of that shit matters in a gunfight, all right? I'm a firm advocate that you're never good enough, and I show people that. So you can come to my course as a beginner or an expert level shooter. You can come to my course as a grandmaster pistol shooter. I don't care. You're gonna get something out of that. I promise you're gonna learn a lot about yourself. I've known from my stress sheets at the end of the courses, and you're gonna move weight, you're gonna be breathing hard, and it's not to emasculate anyone, it's to show them what it's like in a gunfight. Because in a gunfight, you're gonna have an accelerated heart rate like no other. Your adrenaline rush is gonna be like no other, and you have to deal with it. A lot of people use the excuse of whenever you're in a gunfight or you have an adrenaline rush, you don't have fine motor skills, and I say that's bullshit. You just haven't trained them enough. People want to slack on training and say that you can only use gross motor skills whenever you have to be able to use your fine motor skills, and you get that through repetition, just like in a gym. I'm a firm believer in training physically, okay? But my level of fitness that I need to be ready for, or a gunfighter needs to be ready for, is different than that of a bodybuilder. And that's not taken away from a bodybuilder, because I'm a firm advocate in muscle hypertrophy. I still train in muscle hypertrophy, but I also do an insane amount of breathing outside of a Stairmaster. I'm talking about like 30 rounds of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off on a ski erg or a row machine where you have to get at least 150 meters or greater. I'll go from deadlifting almost 600 pounds to doing some interval weight training like that, and then come back to muscle hypertrophy stuff. All right, so it's just different levels of fitness. And what I tell people, if you want to be as big as you can. If you want to be an endurance athlete, be the best endurance athlete you can. And if you want to be a gunfighter, understand that it's somewhere in between there. That's where we're at, okay? I can't be big because I need to be able to breathe really, really well. But I can't be an endurance athlete because I need to have the strength and size and mass to be able to inflict harm on a bad guy. And I need to be able to have the strength to pick you up, but have the endurance to also carry your ass out of there for however long I have to, if I have to. All right, so that's the kind of mindset that I approach my fitness goals with and the people I train with, all right?